joining us.
Thank you, Donna. First of all, first and foremost, thank you, Donna, and thank you, Atlantic Data, for putting this event together. Believe me, getting people to come out. Right now, we have 54 people on, which is extremely impressive. Great job, guys. I want to say that getting that many people out in the Zoom fatigue and in Corona is no easy task. So congratulations. I'm actually not part of the best part of this presentation. So honestly, I'm your opening act, and I'm going to be in and out of here in about 45 minutes. I'm going to do a presentation today that I did for the Triad ISSA, which Terry was part of, Terry Cavanaugh on my team who saw it. It's maybe a little bit enlightening. Some people were terrified by it. Some people laughed at it. Some people thought it was a little scary. What I do here is talk about something called humans are the weakest link. So we're going to delve into that. And immediately you should immediately take note that, well, I'll get to it. You'll see in a second. Now, what I do is I know this is going to come as a great disappointment to you. So stand by for disappointment. But number one, you're allowed to drink during my presentation. I encourage you to drink. So you can either be doing these, which I have, or you can actually have your own stuff. I don't care. So please get that started. Number two, I'm not going to do a PowerPoint for 45 minutes, and I hope you're not disappointed by that. And I will break out and show you some things. So you're going to get an education, then you're going to have a beer tasting. All right, now what I'd like to ask you to do a favor. Everybody mute your phones, and everybody turn your cameras off just for a minute. I'm going to give you permission if you want to turn them back on and ask a question. You're free to. Other than that, I'd like to have the floor just for the next couple of minutes, if you don't mind. And make sure you're muted and enjoy the presentation. Okay, so again, Brian Linder, and here's a little bit about me. Actually, here's nothing about me except my LinkedIn page. You heard the whole long-winded introduction. My role here at Checkpoint is security beyond the perimeter, which means the user experience, the remote user experience, which includes SaaS applications like Office 365, includes laptops, includes smartphones and tablets, and all the threat intelligence behind it. The good news for you is today's not a sales pitch. Today's not going to be about, hey, how can I show you how I want you to buy my products. Actually, though, you will hear stories that relate to our architecture, so you'll get an education on it. But a lot of this presentation is really more about, believe it or not, you than anything else. The coffee talks you mentioned, the podcast. I'm hosting 2 podcasts now. If you're interested, go search it out. Here it is, or text me later, or email me later, whatever. So it's fun. Now, as I said in the beginning, the actual unfortunate and or fortunate part of this is that this is really more about you, because actually you and me and all of us, I don't care whether you're cybersecurity savvy or whether you're a novice. I don't care if you're a spouse. I don't care if a CISO. I don't care who you are. You are part of the problem. I am part of the problem. We are the weakest link. And I'm going to tell you about how humans are the weakest link and how social engineering is hotter than ever, and maybe show you to the length at which humans being the weakest link is exposing us, and some of the controls you can put in place to mitigate that, okay? First of all, we all have heard about phishing attacks. You're going to learn a little bit about the basics of phishing today. And the second thing you're going to learn is how far it's gone, maybe while you weren't looking. But about 81% of all breaches are involving stolen credentials or weak credentials, reuse of credentials. Bottom line is, if I can get a hold of your credentials and impersonate you, I can accomplish a business email compromise and steal money. And that's phishing, okay? So 81% of these breaches, so 8 out of 10 are occurring that way. 82%, by the way, you're going to see this in a research article in about a minute. 82% of malicious files that have been traversed into attacks are coming through email. This is a very, very serious problem. And frankly, in Corona times, we've all taken our eyes a little bit off the ball on this. And that's why you're the problem, and that's why I'm the problem. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit of a minute, okay? All right, here we go. Phishing. What is phishing? Let's just get a definition out there. Most of you know what it is, but if I can trick you into giving information up enough that I can compromise email, get you to click on something, and then I can convince someone else to give me money or steal money one way or another, that's a phishing attack. If you don't know, now you know, okay? And you should know, because it is one of the most popular and loved methods of attack. And you might say, all right, I'll put a control in front of my Exchange server or something. And what you're going to learn today is that, and I think, Terry, you'll have to remind, I think it's like 6 vectors of attack, 6 different ways that persistent bad actor is going to go after you, okay? You're going to see that today. And that's the eye-opening part of it, how many ways we can try to phish you, all right? Here's a little statistic for you. I'm going to give you 2. One, on average, Am I sharing? I am sharing, right? That would be a shame. Am I sharing or am I not sharing? Let's see. Well, let's see.
No.
Oh, wow. I'm just talking at you. You're not even seeing all the fancy. I should have just kept on going. I could have gone 45 minutes that way. Now you can see, right? Listen, on average, a company with about 1,000 employees, many of you are with companies much larger than that, is having around 20 phishing attacks bypassing basic security. Let's face it, most of the email platforms offer some basic security. I think the numbers are varying, but in a company with about 1,000 employees, we see about 20 phishing emails make it through every day. Now think about that. You and I are the weakest link. 20 of these phishing emails are getting through the basic protections. Someone is bound to click on something. So we better have some way of managing that. Certainly trusting you and trusting Brian Linder, trusting me are not great approaches. So let's see how we get around that, okay? All right, let's play some roles, all right? I'm going to play the part of Mr. Fish, who's a very committed, but maybe not even that sophisticated of a bad actor. I'm not talking about a nation-state guy. Believe me, there are nation-state attacks going on. Believe me, there are sophisticated attacks. I'm talking about a guy who, maybe does it as a hobby. He wants to make a little money on the side. Sound familiar, right? This is Mr. Fish. So you get to meet him. He's wearing a hood. He's such a great guy that he's actually wearing a mask, as you'll see in a minute, because he cares about other people's health. So he's after your credentials of somebody. Let's identify that somebody. This is a made-up guy, by the way, so just stay with the story here. This guy's name is Robert Hoffmeyer. He's the vice president of strategy at some company, but he's an important guy. He's a special guy. He knows things. He's got secrets. He's got authority. He's got teams. Somebody that you might know. Somebody that has responsibility. But is he a cyber expert? No. Is he like you and me? Yeah, he's the weakest link. He doesn't know. He's not thinking about phishing attacks every day. He's thinking about more important things. All right, so that's what he's all about. So now we have a little man versus man here. Mr. Fish has a mission. The guy with the hood and the mask on. He's going to try to steal $100,000 from this guy. And he's going to use a series of attacks, and he's going to experience a wide range of emotions like you are. He's going to try to get into his mail, and he's going to try to either send unsolicited emails or some way, somehow get some money transferred into his account and see if he can get away with it. So will you come on a journey with me now for the next couple of minutes while we take a tour of the different ways this might happen, okay? Before we go, I got to tell you about Checkpoint because I am going to reference a couple things. First of all, upper left, Sandblast Mobile. That's a solution that runs on the mobile device. I'll come back to it later. We have Agent, which runs on the laptops I told you about. And we have a number of other solutions. So I'm not going to focus on, this isn't about about products. It's more about vectors of attack, but I wanted you to be aware of them. The other one I'm going to show you is our SaaS protection called CloudGuard SaaS. But there is something you will need to know about that goes beyond the sales pitchy kind of thing. And it's called Threat Cloud. And I'm going to come back to it in a minute. But I want you to note in the middle of this thing called Threat Cloud and the importance of threat intelligence. This is the largest single collection of threat intelligence on the planet. There's nothing larger than it. Later, I'll quote some numbers for you so you can understand how big this thing is. But we'll come back to that. So this is the architecture we'll be generally referring to. But let's get into it. So listen. How many people, raise your hand. No, I know your cameras aren't on, so I can't see you, but you have to just play along. How many people are running Office 365? Raise your hand right at your desk, right with your dog and your baby. Raise your hand if you're running Office 365 in your environment. By the way, if you're not running Office 365, chances are you're running Microsoft Exchange, and then Office 365 is somewhere in your future because it's where everybody's going. It's so much easier to administer, offers all kinds of advantages. It's where we're all going. So the first thing that the hooded Mr. Fish is going to do is try and target this VIP's Office 365 account. Oh, I see. Carl, thank you. He actually raised his hand in the Zoom. That is awesome. He clicked the raise hand button. That is hilarious. Everybody click the raise hand button. Just have a little, I should have done that. Look at this. Look at that. That feedback is so important to me. Right. That's awesome. Okay, I'll keep moving. That's great. I should have done that. I'll know for next time. Anyway, he's going to go ahead and target this guy's Office 365 account. All right, so what's he going to do? He's going to clone the familiar sign-in page. Many of you have probably seen this. You figure if you saw a page that looked like this, that's probably a legit Office 365 page. He's going to register a bogus domain. Now, everybody here probably has a working knowledge of what a variation on a good domain might look like. Like this. See this? Account.offise instead of CE. 356 instead of 365. You've seen it. You know what I'm talking about. Slightly malformed, just ever so slight, but your brain picks it up because you're always looking for it. Don't forget, most people, regular people, aren't looking. And in Corona times, fewer people are looking. They're looking at everything else and worrying about everything else. So anyway, he sets this domain up. And he went ahead and Googled the guy, this Robert Hoffmeyer. He went ahead and found his corporate email address. That took about a minute to do, okay? And he crafted what looks like a very legitimate email. So we have begun the phishing attack. Now, you could see that more than likely elements of it are illegit, but you have to look closely if you're not paying attention. And don't lie to me, and I'm not going to lie to you. How about that, for honest? That there have been times I've seen emails like this, and don't tell me that for at least a half a second you almost got tricked into doing it. You had to stop yourself. But if you look closely at it, there's an awful lot of telltales that indicate that this is a phishing email. Now, of course, you have to be looking for it, but we see the same subject matter being reused over and over for phishing attacks. We see brand-related, in this case 365 or 365 like that, brand-related text in the sender's name. We see it was targeted at a VIP within the organizations. That information is easily available on the dark web. A low-traffic website, which would typically not be where a password reset would go. And, of course, the usual suspicious-looking body text. So these things sort of tip us off that we've got an email here that could be a phishing attack. On the other hand, it takes a lot more than that to identify a potential phishing attack. As a matter of fact, we have about 300 more indicators that we look for. That's a lot. It is not possible for your brain or my brain in Corona time, when we're being interrupted every 5 seconds talking about babies and dogs and talking about all the things weird and drinking and birds and all that, to be looking at 312 indicators for a phishing email. So we have a solution, for example, that called CloudGuard SaaS that will rate using an artificially intelligent judgment to give a verdict on this and say, wait, is it or isn't it? Because humans are the weakest link. Now, if we render a verdict like that it is a phishing attack, we simply quarantine it. And all of the intelligence is happening in the middle of this slide here. This is where all the interesting stuff is happening. Now, let me explain to you the anatomy of this and how a thing gets learned and how when one person suffers, the rest benefit, if you like that, right? So one person that was weak did something or clicked or got learned or we scanned, and then the rest of the planet instantly benefits from this, okay? I'm going to tell you about something called Threat Cloud, and I want you to listen to some of these numbers. First of all, Threat Cloud is the largest collection of threat intelligence on the planet. You're like, well, what does that mean? That sounds like some kind of salesy thing. Give it to you by the numbers. We're aware of over 500 million malicious file hashes and sites. 500 million, okay? Every day we see 700,000 malwares being detected within Threat Cloud. 17 million cyber attacks detected a week. You can watch it on our live map. 11 million malware behavioral signature files. It's about 86 billion transactions a day from 150,000 gateways and an untold number of endpoints every single day. 4 million files emulated in the cloud every day for potential indicators of compromise. And we block about 8,300 zero-day attacks a day. You'll see what that means in a minute and how important that is. But the point I want to make is that once we have determined that this bogus-looking domain name is part of a phishing attack, we register it in Threat Cloud. It becomes part of the collective intelligence, and that everybody after this person has then realized the benefit of that. That's called Threat Cloud, and it's blacklisted, okay? So this frustrates the hacker. The bad actor gets frustrated, but don't get me wrong. He's nowhere near giving up. He's just getting started. As a matter of fact, he's got his backup now. He's got his mask on. He's compliant in Corona times. He can go to the Walmart, but boy, he's coming right back. He's going to sit right back down. He's going to try the next thing on his list. So let's see what that is. Now, can't get into the corporate email, so let's go after the personal email. Now you're saying, well, wait a minute. What is Checkpoint? Sounds like Checkpoint protects corporate environments, and Atlantic Data Security is in charge of my company's email. What does personal email have to do with it? Wow, personal email is one of the most fantastic vectors for a bad actor to go after. First of all, I can easily determine this guy's email address. It's trivial to do. I'm going to go ahead and register another really confusing domain, okay? And I'm going to do it in real time. registered a fresh domain. I'm going to go after it. We send him a good old Gmail so we know he's on Gmail. So what do?
Wow.
We impersonate on Gmail. We're going to go ahead and impersonate. Here we go. Hey, click here. Okay, somebody go to mute for me, unless you want to come on up. I want you to click here for the reset page. He gets a personal email, right? He clicks it because he thinks, okay, I got
for it. It's not you, it's me.
Hey, Donna, can you mute whoever that is?
I'll tell you when it's fixed.
Donna, can you mute him? Yeah. What happens? We pass that domain through as soon as he clicks it up to Threat Cloud. Let's say it traverses a Checkpoint home office gateway or his Sandblast agent, which is running on his endpoint or whatever it is. And we send it up to Threat Cloud as well. We don't know what it is. It's an unknown domain. We analyze it. We blacklist it. And the reason we blacklist it is not because of some visual thing about it, but we found out that some previously known bad actor in the same week with similar text elements, if you look at the over here at the blacklisted one that we knew about versus the one we just saw, there's some similarities there. We are blocking it. We're saying, yes, that is another phishing attack, even though we had no knowledge of that domain. So that is a critical piece of it. That is a 0-day attack that nobody could have known about. That URL previously was never seen in the wild. And then now it becomes part of the collective intelligence. We say, yes, it's phishing, and we block it. All right? And that is part, but only the beginning of the art of blocking a phishing attack. What I'd like to do is take you out and show you something. I'd like to show you some crazy things that are going on. I have 3 of these. These are from the Checkpoint blog, okay? You're going to see 3 of these today. And what I'd like to do is show you what has happened, first of all, in Corona times. Let's make this very relevant. Let's take this right to the current day. As a matter of fact, I believe I am within 3 days of today. This was like 3 days ago. And what I'm going to do is take what I've shown you so far and bring it into current times. First of all, this is actually hilariously funny in a sad kind of way. And here's the message. Threat actors have joined in the race towards a coronavirus vaccine, which is actually really, really dark and funny. What's happening is the phishing attacks are occurring while you are busy worrying about vaccines for corona and sending kids back to school and all the things that are really important right now. Phishing attacks and watching for them aren't important. What is important is maybe vaccines or unemployment or benefits or the stimulus or other things. Those are the things that are important to you. So if you get some kind of email that looks convincing about new approved vaccines, or I'll say it differently, if somebody in your family who maybe isn't as savvy as you are gets it, and that particular email is baiting them to a place where they can either test a drug or be invited into some fake vaccine testing or something. Maybe they're in a heightened state of suggestibility on it. Here, this one was recruiting elder adults, so somebody maybe thinks they're doing the world a favor by participating, and it takes them to a Canadian pharmacy, which of course is one gigantic phishing site. All right. So this phishing site has the purpose of stealing credentials, for example, for this Canada pharmacy. Note, here's the scam logo, okay, and here's the real Canada pharmacy logo. The average person isn't going to be able to tell the difference. I'm not saying nobody will, but check it out. This whole website, which looks extremely convincing, is nothing more than a giant phishing attack. First of all, we've convinced you to enter more than likely some credentials, and we're offering bogus sales on drugs. And if you click any of these and put your credit card information in, you are then a victim. That's happening, okay? Let me show you something else totally fascinating, maybe even more fascinating. Look closely at this graph. Watch what I'm going to tell you about. I want you to follow, just for a second, the rate at which coronavirus-related cyber attacks were occurring. Notice what happened. The usual spike happened back when it all started. That's totally expected. Now, the next thing that happened is going to be a bit unexpected. You're going to say, why would a company like Checkpoint, why would this Brian Linder guy start telling me why coronavirus-related attacks have dropped? And they have dropped. Let's superimpose. Same thing. Here's the corona in red, the spike, and then it's dropping off. What's happening to all cyber attacks? Increasing. So what is the point of this? The point of this is that there's actually less being seen. So people are even more distracted. They're not watching for coronavirus attacks. It's not in the news every day. So what's happening is your defenses go down. So when you see an email that says coronavirus, please join our pilot program for studying the impacts of some new drug, people will be more susceptible to believing that that's real because these attacks have dropped off. They've fallen off. Okay? And so while the attacks fall, while they become more harmful, more damaging, then people become more distracted in Corona. We have a perfect storm. That's what happens. And that is what's happening. Okay? Let me come back out. Thanks for entertaining that. Okay, so back to the show here. This guy's getting obviously a little wound up because he can't get what he wants. He's going to keep going till he gets what he wants, presumably. So let's see where he goes next. All right, so now he figures, they must have something in place that is magically detecting my domain names, and I have an idea. Let me go right now, really quickly, and let me register a brand new domain, okay? And hopefully whatever tricky database they have or whatever it is or shared intelligence, it'll all be moot because they won't be able to see it, all right? So he clicks, he gets presented with a page that looks very familiar, and we go into our threat cloud, okay? We don't find the domain. We don't find it, but we find that is an indicator of phishing. So even though he registered the domain and we didn't catch the domain because it failed whatever tests we put it through, when he went to put a password, username and password into the fields, we were able to assess that this page, in fact, was a phishing attack. So we stop the username and password from being transmitted back to some bogus server that's collecting. Okay? We verdict it as a 0-day phishing site, and we block it, and we tell the user. All right? Now, remember something important, and now it's time to show you something scary. This is the part that really got the ISSA guys a little disturbed. Okay? I'm going to show you this. Now, what I'm going to show you, what I'm going to talk about first of all is remember, if I can trick you into clicking on a website and I don't detect it as an illegitimate website, or I don't know about it, or my heuristics don't catch it, you become the weakest link. You're now set up to put a password and username in, and you're to be phished. The phishing attack's going to be successful. Let me show you, first of all, if you don't know what checkpoint research is, I'll brief you. I'm going to show you how this has evolved and how creative the bad actors have become and how scary this can be. Let me show you. First of all, what you're looking at is a web page that is part of CP Research, and I'll zoom in just a little because you're like, I can't read that. I'm drinking my rum. I can't read that. This is CP Research. By the way, in case you don't know what Checkpoint Research is, it's 200 full-time researchers out of our headquarters out over in Israel who do nothing all day but research, and you're going to hear about a very interesting find. You may have heard about SIGRED, which was the big Microsoft DNS vulnerability that affected every version of Windows back, but that's not even the most interesting one you're going to hear about today. You're going to hear about one that's going to shake a lot of people up, and I'll get to it, so that's a teaser. But anyway, Checkpoint Research did what might look like, I'll call it, something that might get lost in your inbox. Let's be honest. We're all distracted. We're not looking for this stuff. This was probably something that maybe you saw, maybe you didn't see. It depends if you're hooked to us or not. Back in June, we discovered an Office 365 phishing campaign, okay? You're like, yeah, so what? What else is new? Let me show you what they did. And let me go right to the graphic here. Let me show you what they did. I call this a laundering phishing attack. It's my own made-up term. Let me explain it to you. Usually in a phishing attack, I present you with a URL, a website, and I ask you to click on it. But if you put your mouse over it, maybe it said, as you saw earlier, maybe it said, the owner 365 or owner 356.myemail.com, or another one you may have seen is like, 365 passwordfix.info, or something ridiculous that as a cyber professional, you probably pick up on it. Check out what these guys did. This attack took advantage of a legitimate server that Samsung operated to capture and do redirect. So imagine a legit Samsung website. You click on something, it redirects you, and then they track a click, and then off you go, and you never even know about it. But the point is, some intermediate server right here, owned by Samsung, that's legit, tracked you. Well, the hackers took over this particular website, and the phishing email baited you to click on a Samsung website that was actually legit. From there, it traveled through a compromised series of redirects that actually phished you. So, point being, even if you had the best control in the world with Threat Cloud, which is the finest collection of threat prevention on the planet, it's not clear that that would have caught it. So what my point is, coming back to the presentation, is it is not enough to simply say, I know what websites are malicious. It's not enough to know that. You have to apply intelligence to say, do I have other indicators about this phishing attack beyond just the domain name? Because in this case, the Samsung website would have been seen as legit. We would have gotten to this point where we were actually scanning the resulting website, the extreme right of the attack, and we would have identified that that was a phishing attack. But it would have taken us all the way through the process up until the point where the guy was, or the gal was, typing username and password, but we still caught it. Okay? That's called 0 day. It's the same idea. Very, very scary because they've leveraged legitimate websites that would not be detectable by 99% of the controls out there. Okay? Hope you enjoyed that little teaser there. Okay, so this guy's getting royally, royally pissed off. I mean, you know, he's on a one-man mission he's going to stay up all night, and he's going to work all night and figure out a way to get in. And he's coming up now on one of the more interesting things. First of all, okay, let's do it again. Use your raise hand button. Okay, this is entertaining. I'm entertained. Do you know what WhatsApp is? How many people know what WhatsApp is? Okay, 3. Anybody else use it? Okay, I'll wait. Good. WhatsApp. Okay. Keep clicking. I'm going to keep moving. Hopefully you know what WhatsApp is. If you don't, it's similar. It's a messaging app for mobile devices. Okay. So it's like a FaceTime, or, you know, on Android, but it's a universal app. So it'll run on any mobile platform. All right. So WhatsApp is very popular. By the way, WhatsApp is by no means the only one. You could simply use text messaging, the text app, the messages app. It doesn't matter. So whatever your messaging platform of choice is. Now, the first thing I need to do to accomplish a mobile attack on the mobile device is what? Well, I got to find his phone number. You imagine how easy that is. Not too hard at all. Whether you're on the regular web or the dark web, it's pretty easy for me to find your phone number, or for you to find mine. Some kind of search goes on. It's not a stretch of the imagination that he's going to find this guy's number. Now, let me show you 2 possible scenarios. What you're looking at is something somewhat familiar. If you've got a message that looked like it came from the help desk, maybe you would be savvy enough to catch it, but most people would have a moment of weakness and think that perhaps they need to click a link. Now, you know, you're smelling it. You're saying, no, that looks illegit already. A lot of people are clicking these links. When they click it, we go up to our threat cloud and we ascertain through threat intelligence that is in the cloud already that it was a phishing site. So we stop it on the mobile device. Okay? Now, another case study. Let's say the same thing happens, but it turns out that this URL redirects to an unknown website. So he went out and he registered a website, or for that matter, they're using a set of Samsung redirects, the laundered, nasty laundered landing that is a legitimate, you know, website. Let's say, well, this is 0 day phishing. We got to go all the way to the point on this one where they're presented with a login page. They try to log in. We scan it in real time and we block it because we say, no. This is a phishing attack. It's a phishing site. Let me kind of summarize this. Then I'm going to kind of blow your mind a little bit. It takes multiple layers to protect truly against a phishing attack. Obviously, if a URL is seen and it's up in Threat Cloud and we know about it, that's a slam dunk. But if we go beyond that, we have heuristics we have to apply to the actual site itself to block 0 day, to perform a 0 day block. We were able to block it without any knowledge. Now I'm going to rock your world a little bit. I don't need you to click your raise hand button, but I'm going to tell you about something that got announced Friday or Thursday. And today we did an internal on this, and you're going to have an opportunity tomorrow to see this. And this is quite disturbing. I'm just going to let you know. All right. This is called the Achilles vulnerability. If you use an Android phone, more than likely this affects you. Okay. I'll explain what happened. Qualcomm makes a chip, hardware chip, not software, hardware that lives in your device. Okay. And it encompasses something called system on chip. And I'll show you a little picture of this. I have it, so I just pulled this off, so bear with me. I'll jump a little. You can handle me jumping, right? Yes. Let's get through. Yes. Okay, thank you for that. Here we go. Okay, here it is. Chip system on chip is a very simple concept. Here's your device. Here's a chip inside of it. It's a hardware device. It's got a Qualcomm chip that is used by most device manufacturers, including Samsung, Sony, LG, Google, Lenovo, you name it, okay? And we have discovered 400 vulnerabilities in the chipset, not the device, not the operating system, but in the actual chipset. So I'll explain the architecture to you. The chipset combines multiple systems in one chip, such as the camera, the location, the CPU, security, all of it. And it is a programmable chip. So the chip can be programmed not by you and me, but by the likes of Lenovo or Samsung. This is a black hole to you. You have nothing to do with this. It's all done at the carrier level. Well, imagine 40% of the world's mobile devices being impacted by a vulnerability in the chip itself. Imagine that. And that's exactly what is happening. This was announced Friday. We disclosed it responsibly. Been working with Qualcomm since February on this. We disclosed it responsibly with them last week. You can see it in Forbes magazine and about a dozen other places on the internet. They've assigned CVEs to it. It can't be remedied strictly by a software fix. One cannot load a new code, cannot easily just load a new code on the Qualcomm chip. It doesn't work that way. The only way to truly be free of the issue is to use a newer version of the chip, which would be available only in newer phones. So that's ridiculous. I'm going to talk about Sandblast Mobile and how mobiles are a true blind spot here in a second. But this is a real thing, and it's going to impact 40%, or it is impacting 40% of the world's phones. By the way, if you're wondering if your phone is impacted by it, and if you use Android, assume that it is. That's just the easiest way to handle it. And, I'm not going to do it today. If you want to learn more about this, please attend our event. Send me an email. Send the Atlantic Data Team an email. They'll be there as well. And come check out the details about it. But the way this is mitigated as well, and I'll go back to my presentation, so thanks for allowing me to jump off there. And how am I doing on time? Let's see. 49. Oh, my God. No, we started at 3:15. I got it like 5 more minutes. Okay, good. Between me and the drinking, okay? If you're wondering how I accomplish, for instance, anti-phishing on a mobile device, and another example would be, how can I stop once someone gets a hold of the ability to hack my compromised chip on my Android phone? How do I stop that? Well, I stop it with a tool called Sandblast Mobile. Sandblast Mobile doesn't rewrite chip code or anything like that. It operates layers above it, but it stops the exploit. So let me be a bit more specific. Checkpoint, fortunately, I should say, did not release the exploit code. That's how serious this was. So the governments that got involved, and Qualcomm was involved, the scope of this was seen as so severe that we were guided to not release the exploit code, to not create opportunities for people. And if you know anything about responsible disclosure, you know that's not traditionally how it's done. Typically, the exploit would be released to the public in order to create accountability, and by then, hopefully, we have patched everything. Well, this is so serious that we were guided not to do that, so we didn't. But point being, when someone figures it out in the dark, on the dark side, and tries to exploit it, Sandblast Mobile is a tool that lives on that device to stop the results of command and control or phishing attacks or exploiting. Now, you'll see tomorrow, I'm not going to do it here, but come tomorrow, it talks about how we can brick the device, how the device can be completely opened up for audio, video, everything can be stolen. It's a big one. So it's probably worth coming to. So there's your teaser. So that's called Sandblast Mobile. Okay, let me finish up. I know I have like 3 minutes left before the main act comes on. Okay. This guy is so persistent, he's not giving up. The last thing he's going to do is try to reuse corporate credentials. So this happens an awful lot. All right, watch this. Last year, actually I lied, 2 years ago, 100 million usernames and passwords were stolen from Quora users. Now, Quora is a social media site for questions and answers. It's used by an awful lot of people, especially people in tech. And basically, he's active. This particular this executive at the company is active talking about SpongeBob on Quora. Okay, and we ought to be able to detect, first of all, if I stole his Quora password. Was that his corporate password? Did he reuse his corporate password out in the wild on some social media website. Now, don't raise your hand for this, but how many people have like one password they vary slightly? Maybe it's even a strong password that they vary just a little bit, and they reuse variations of it, maybe even reuse it completely. So you don't have to tell me, you don't have to own up to it, but I'll tell you that I know I'm partially guilty of it. You probably are too. Well, somebody got a hold of 100 million of these passwords. They had a very brief window to do it. And we have a way to prevent the use of this by inspecting these password hashes through multiple vectors. And we say, look, did this guy try to use a password, or should I say change his password in a social media site? And was it the corporate password? We do it by hashes. We don't actually see passwords. Then we know about it and we stop it. Okay? So, and that becomes a logged event. So point being, the ability to stop the leakage of credentials is extremely important. All right, I'm going to skip through this. Yeah, now we're going to skip through that. Yep, we're running short on time, so there we go. Yes, let me summarize. Today, before the drinking really begun, although some of you are already drinking, I hope, you witnessed all of what you are seeing here, believe it or not. Now let's count them up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 2. That's 2 and 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's 14 vectors of attack. 14. Now, humans are the weakest link, you and me. Do you believe that you, in your distracted corona times, are going to be able to individually and conscientiously protect yourself against 14 vectors of attack we looked at today, all on hope, all on I hope I'm able to do it. We unify all of these through a single threat intelligence by way of threat cloud to give that unified experience and protect against all of them at once through all these vectors. Okay, and it's a lot of them. Okay, now, is this guy special? Are you special? Or is your CEO special? Are these guys unique and interesting? I'll tell you a little story and then I'm done. This is it. Back in 2018, if you're familiar with the Israeli government, so checkpoints based in Israel, and Bibi Netanyahu is the prime minister, current sitting prime minister, and then Ehud Barak is one of the former prime ministers, and one was poking fun at the other just for the elections, which, by the way, were a whole debacle last year, but that's another thing. We'll have our year this year. Don't talk about politics. Don't start with that. Anyway, so here's what happened. Ehud Barak gets on TV, and he's going to go eat some hummus, and who cares? Well, he's on TV, right? Check this out now. He's on TV. 30 seconds in, what does he do? Holds his credit card up. Upside down, holds his credit card up. What happens 10 minutes later? It ends up on Twitter. My point being, no one, not even the former prime minister of Israel, who is a country that is very attuned to security, whether it be cyber security or physical or whatever, he's flashing unintentionally, unintentionally flashing his credit card on camera. That's just one example. So we can all use a safety net. We all make mistakes. You contact the folks at Atlantic Data Security, and I'll come in and I'll help you guys identify where your big threats are. And I'm Brian Linder, and I appreciate you guys joining. A reminder before I go, get through this. Yes, thank you to Atlantic Data for hosting me. Thank you for giving me 45 minutes, and I probably took not even, so you're welcome. And check out the Coffee Talk. Our last episode was an interview with a guy called Avi Rembaum, who talks about unique perspectives on Corona you won't hear from anywhere else. It's like a 30-minute listen, so it's real easy, short and sweet, and good time. So that's it for me, and thanks again, guys. Enjoy your city brew tours.